Right, let's talk pensions. Through the survey, loads of people kept asking, how can I afford it and do I really need it?
Absolutely. Great question. Do I need a pension and how can I afford it? When you're newly qualified, you may not feel that your salary, your income warrants you putting some money aside at that age to pay for your future. You may be relying on the state pension to help cover your retirement and your retirement costs. The two things I would say there is, we are all nowadays living much longer, and dare I say it, we may all want a flexible approach to work, if not in our early life, certainly in our later life. And that might mean that we don't want to work so much and we might want to take a pension sooner rather than later. The other big area with pensions is the beauty of compound interest. And by that I mean, when you pay money into a policy, a pension policy, when you're young, you've got so many more years for that pension pot to grow to be able to fund your retirement in the lifestyle that you want to keep. So I would say that a pension, even when you feel you can't quite afford it, is absolutely vital to start with. You don't often need to put very much in, just the regularity and the discipline of putting a little bit away each month is really going to secure your future, and you won't regret it by the time you come to retirement.
Plus, you've got the massive ability to decide to stop for a bit if things change. If you take a career break, if you need to take time out, you don't have to pay in all the time, every time. If it's in your name, you decide. And if you need to turn it off for a few months or a year, then that's fine. It's still there, making interest for you that you can then use later on.
Yeah, the big acronym these days is FIRE. Financial independence, retire early, which is the aim for most of us. The second part, retire early, can only come if you've got financial independence. And to get financial independence, you've got to take control of your own finances. The earlier you do that, the better position you'll be in.
So we as veterinary professionals, actually we as professionals in general in the world, we now tend to move through more jobs and also more careers, and that's normal and fine. But often our pension will be attached to a job because our employers provide it. What can a personal pension help to combat? What are the pros of also investing into a personal pension?
Well, it's your pension, so you get to decide how much you put in it each month, and you can then move that up and down. A lot of company pensions out there are fairly small. Don't get me wrong, they're great because you're putting money in, but also your employer is putting money in. But again, it's probably quite fixed, and the ability for you to change, manoeuvre, increase, decrease, etc. is probably quite limited.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would reiterate Paul's points there. A personal pension is bespoke to you and can follow you irrespective of where you earn your money and who your employer is. A work-based pension is also important. If you're offered one of those, definitely take one up because your employer will be paying on top of the money that you will be putting in. But that pension plan will have been chosen by your employer, and often, if it is portable, it's very expensive to port and may be challenging to do so. So a personal pension gives you much more flexibility. And obviously, if you're self-employed, you won't have an employer paying into a pension on your behalf. So it's absolutely vital you have a personal pension because that is going to be your sole source often of funds when you retire.
Now we have touched on it a bit, but it's come up again and again and again in the surveys. How much should I be putting away? And when people think about can they afford it or not, we often move into, people like me, we go into financial paralysis because it seems too much or they just don't even want to think about it. So I'd love your thoughts on how much people should be putting away.
That's a really difficult question to answer. So certainly a lot of numbers out there are scarily big. Certainly when I first graduated, people were talking about numbers that I couldn't afford. And so the risk when someone says you should be putting 20-25% of your income into a pension is that you just go, I haven't got that I don't have that at the end of each month, therefore I'm going to do nothing about it. So really, I suspect, Matt will probably back me up, it's as much as you can afford. Obviously what you're doing with a pension is you're putting that away for 30, 40, 50 years. So you need to make sure that you can afford to live today, tomorrow, next week. But if there's anything left over at the end of the month, try and start putting that in the pension, even if that is only £10-15 a month.
For me, it's the discipline of setting up that pension in the first place, because once it's set up, you can then decide what monthly contributions you want to make. And as Paul said, you may not be able to afford monthly contributions every month, and you can take a break from paying into your pension. You can alter the amount you put into your pension. When you can afford to put a bit more in, then I would certainly encourage people to do so. If you're out of work but still want to contribute, you could reduce the premiums, the amount you're paying in each month. But having the discipline to set up a pension and make those regular contributions is the vital first step.
And when you get a pay rise, someone once recommended when you get a pay rise, try and put half of it into your pension each month. So if you get a couple of £100 increase a month on your monthly salary, just go, okay, well that's nice. I'll put half of it into my pension, and the other half I will enjoy.